In this video, we're going to come back here to the Schumann resonance and take a closer look at what could have possibly caused the spike in energy that was seen around planet Earth on the night of the 1st from the 29th of February through March 1st for just a few hours. There was an unusual signature. I put up a video story about that energy, and if you're not familiar with what the story is, anytime you see a red circle around my avatar, if you click on it, it'll take you to a new story. The red circle means I've got a new story up. It's just a 15-second video clip of something new that I'm working on, or something that I'm going to be working on during the day. You can see over here at the N3KL, there was a disturbance detected around the same time in the geomagnetic field of planet Earth, and it was unsettled for a while. And there was an unexpected eruption that came off of the eastern limb of the sun. And you can see a still image of it here, and we're going to take a look at a video clip of that eruption that was actually quite impressive. However, it did not have hardly any horsepower to it whatsoever. So very indicative of solar minimum. However, this large eruption was quite a surprise, as you're going to see right there. And that's in original speed, came off super slow. It was actually super large, probably 500-600 times larger than Earth, maybe larger, but had no density, had no speed, didn't have much of anything but a physical presence, and it was very photogenic. As you just saw there on the Soho-Lascaux C2, this is the Soho-Lascaux C3. You can see a small eruption there, and then a 180 up here at the top, sprays out, and then the larger one over here off to the left, that would be the eastern limb of the sun, right around the same time as the energy was felt in the Schumann around planet Earth. So basically it did what it was supposed to do. It felt the energy, albeit very small. It was definitely there, and I think this is what created the disturbance in the Schumann resonance that we saw. At least the time is consistent, and that was an unexpected eruption, by the way. That was a large explosion, but like I said, didn't have any horsepower at all. No density, no speed, just big and photogenic. One of the biggest ones I've seen in a while. Honestly, here comes in 3, 2, 1 right there. And it's going right at Venus. Whatever it may contain, doesn't have much, but it's going towards Venus, as you can see right there. And there it goes. That's a current planetary map that I just showed you. That's going right in the direction of Venus. And there's the energy. Times are consistent. So I do think that that's definitely what caused the disturbance in the Schumann. Wasn't too much of a flare. If it was a much stronger flare, let's say it had a lot of density, a lot of speed. I've seen flares come off here at over 1,000,000 miles per hour. And when those come close to Earth, any type of that energy, the Schumann really lights up. So what we saw in the Schumann was actually pretty mild, consistent with a hollow, basically mild solar flare, or some sort of an eruption, not necessarily a flare. I don't even think it was categorized as a solar flare.
Well, first up, this is actually a report as requested by Evan, actually demanded. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this, because you guys don't realise I'm actually looking at myself, which is rather painful. So anyway, I digress. Look, this is firstly about an article we've just written on the ring. And as you probably know, we have a few now. We have 3, 2 from Lemuria and 1 from Atlantis. And this is primarily about the Atlantean ring. And in particular, it's about developments that we've picked up on, one of which is, and a couple I'll mention now, but there is an article if you want to read it, but we'll do a couple irrespective of whether you do or don't. One part of the article is devoted to the fact for quite a few articles and some attempts at ceremonies, we've tried to clean the ring because it was tainted. It's now become obvious to us that that's actually not the deal. It's what you get now is what you deal with, and we're supposed to deal with this in a different way, but I've been told by quite a few different people that have some degree of understanding what's going on that it should be left. And the article is primarily about the fact that we've now decided it still has that power, but it might be able to see both sides of the equation, which in the long run may be a help in times to come. So the article mentions that, and it also goes into some detail that gives a bit more of a perspective. And in that respect, I'm going to refer us back to a place called Carrion and the Carrion glyphs. And there is one glyph which stands apart from the 300 odd. And it's not because it's on a different panel to the others, because there are 3 different panels, and 2 relate to one story, 1 to the Egyptian and something else. But it's because it's separate to every other engraving there, and it's basically in the ground, on the dirt. And it's of a woman that's obviously pregnant, and what's taking place is her arms are standing forward like that, both her arms are standing forward, and then she's holding a shaft, which we have recognized in Ray Johnson's manual as being a golden shaft. But what was weird was above and below her arms was half of her, like a semicircle, half a circle there and half a circle on the other side. Like it was originally one circle that had been broken in some way. And I thought it could have been a person, a child coming out of the mother, but I couldn't see the arms, and no one knew what it was. Well, we now think that's a story about the ring being brought to Australia. When it was first brought to Australia, it was brought to Carrion, which is on 33 degrees. And remembering that the ring was buried at Hill End, 1.5 meters beneath the surface, which is 33 degrees, it's not a big leap to assume there might be a link there. We were put onto this because psychics have told us they'd seen that link and seen Carrion as a place where they were there. But what we found with that glyph is it's of a woman, and she's holding a golden staff. Now remember, the stories are when the ring was taken from Atlantis, it was carried on a golden staff because the inner temple of Poseidon is made from orichalcum and gold, and they go together. So therefore it carried it. It was buried in a gold site because that's where it goes. So that's all cool. We understood that. But the fact is, it looks to me like it is a woman holding that shaft, and separate from the other narratives, not part of anything else. Now, we suspect that Carrion might be actually recording the arrival of the Ring of Atlantis on its way to Hill End. And I remember, but I've had 2 psychics who told me, one in particular, which I go into in this actually report, of her facing westward with the ring, not the actual seaside. Now, really, that's interesting because it makes sense of something else that's on the actual Carrion site. It makes a lot more sense to me. And that's this, that on that site, there is a story which we don't dispute of 2 brothers coming here, and we see the name Nefertjeb inside a cartouche, we don't argue with that, of the ships being badly wrecked, them being knocked around and landing here and staying here for a while. We don't dispute that. We think that's true. And there's also a story there of Nefertari, one of the 2 sons of Khufu. And that may not be the right pronunciation. Bob Newton says it's a bit different. It could be. I'm not an Egyptologist. But there is a narrative there that acknowledges that. And here's the weird part. The ships are knocked about. They're not seaworthy. They've been knocked about. So what does one of the 2 brothers do? According to the narrative, goes west for 2 seasons. Was attacked by Mozzies and got bitten by a snake twice and died. Why? You've just got to a new land. You're trying to make first contact with them. Why is it when you've just had the crap knocked out of you? As soon as you get there, one of the two brothers does a runner into foreign country he's never been before. It's during a drought. They say it was a drought with horrible conditions. 2 seasons is a fair way. There and back would be about how far it would take you to walk the hill end and back. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is very simply is why would he go there? What would be the point? It seems a pointless thing to do when you've landed new land. It's a bit like Christopher Columbus landing somewhere and saying, okay, I'm now on the shores of Australia, of America. I think I'll nip off to Utah and hang around the desert for a while and then come back and just see how it goes. That's not how they did it. But apparently this time around they did. Well, I wouldn't do it unless it was something that really made it important. If it was one of the 3 rings from Atlantis and Khufu knew about it, maybe that's one of the reasons they came. I'll never know, but it's a potential, it's a possibility. Okay, now that article is going up, and after that I'm doing a boring article on rocks because so many new ones have come in, but I'm sorry, I have to do them occasionally. But in the meantime, I want to first of all thank people who came to our first attempt at a sort of a cooperative, equally profit-sharing arrangement at Byron when we put on our first show, which is our ancient ancestry, what comes next. Now, there's some mistakes we made which we'll improve on for sure, and it was really nice to use people as a practice point for this, because what's come out of that is 2 things. Firstly, that resort, which is called the Discovery Holiday Resort, I think in Byron, which is 35 acres, and it's a really fantastic spot. Everyone there really enjoyed the place and where it was, and you could stay there the night, and we supplied for lunch on the first day, the whole thing, and it worked really well. Now, we're going to do it again. Same deals apply, everything is shared, Evan does all the work for nothing. They've put in the venue for nothing, and this time they've given us a weekend, which makes it easier. And I think it's the 6th and 7th or March all around there. It's the first weekend in that month. And what we're doing there this time is a completely different theme. That's the point of this. They'll always be thematic. And this one's based around, believe it or not, something Winston Churchill said, and I can't remember it exactly. And it was something about history. I mean, he should know because he was involved in manipulating history, so he knows how it goes. And he basically said that everything that's taken away from the truth of history diminishes humans as a race. Because everything you don't know about yourself from the past culminates on what you know about yourself today and where you go. And what he was basically saying is that history was written by the victors, and often so many things about our past have been taken away. We really don't understand where we come from, and we don't know where we're taking ourselves. So this time around, we're looking at history from a different point of view of vital pieces of history that have been taken away from humanity that we need back now. So we've done this from a different viewpoint. Barry Eaton's going to come along and talk about an integral part of our history, and the 101 of any psychology or psychiatric work that's ever done is the acknowledgement that we come here with past lives, and with that comes associated baggage from before. That he talks about the fact that we proves that we do have a past life, and it's part of how we should factor in who we are today. So that's one way of looking at it. Then we've done it from a different viewpoint. Leah, who spoke last time on, spoke again because she's got so many different aspects to the story. She's both remembering in the past life and being given by people, extraterrestrials. And this part relates to the time when she was on this planet as an Atlantean, which rings with the ring, of course. And she was there for the fall. And that story of humanity and whatever other species were involved in being overtaken by technology and losing their spiritual compass, which is so much a part of today, and why this place is falling apart, is so poignant, because it's everything you hear, you keep saying, yeah, I've seen that, done that. It's the same story again. And it's a part of our history. Atlantis should be a reminder of what we will do if we continue down this path much longer. So it's an important part of our history again. And in each case, what we're doing is we're looking at a different part of that story. Then we're going to try something completely different with a lady, wonderful lady, got an Order of Australia for community work in Carryong, and was basically the person that was the focal point in saving the Carryong Gosford glyphs. But she's got a story about her parents. And that story is based around something I keep remembering now. In Turkey today, if I was a Turk and I lived there and I started talking about the massacre of 1 million Armenians at the turn of the 20th century, or 19th century rather, when it became about 1900 and something, whatever that means, they were killed. Genocide took place. We do it all the time. It happens everywhere. Well, it doesn't happen in Turkey. If I said that right now, I'd go to jail. And I'm probably in some trouble for even saying it now, because that piece of history is being sanitized and taken away. And this is what we do. Now, Nina's story is about her parents who were at and were Jews and were captured and part of Auschwitz from start to finish and survived it. And their account is called Don't Cry, Dance. And it's a different way of looking at something that's horrific that should never be forgotten, but it's not done the same way you would expect. And it's a poignant story of how humans can overcome everything, and we've been through everything, but we should never forget. And in fact, the title for this presentation is taken from Nina's book, and it means basically along the lines of we should never forget our past, all of it. It's what makes us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, and then on the second day, what we're doing is we're going to do workshops, but this time it's going to be different insofar as we're going to do a rock workshop again, because that's very important, and we'll change that presentation. But what we're also doing at the moment, and something's turned up on our thing now, oh good, thank God for that, I didn't know you were that. We're doing a workshop, Barry Eaton's doing a workshop on contacting past lives, and Nina, on that occasion, that's when she's going to talk, on the first day, she's going to talk about how the community saved carry-on, how important it is that carry-on glyphs, and that's important. That's another piece of history that was really taken from us. On the second day, she's going to talk about, and we're going to sit around, I'm going to sit around with it, and it's going to be a conversation where the audience will be invited to ask questions, and it's going to be our 1.5 to 2 hour conversation about her book, about the story of her parents, and about the story of what took place there, but always from the point of view of people who were smiling, and as we said, didn't cry but danced. So it's a different way of doing things. So on the second day, we have 3 workshops there. Now, enough of that. We're also doing about 2 weeks later down in Melbourne, the same presentation we did the first time, because I want to take this around Australia, because that's about the change. It's about the change that's going to take place very soon. I've been told yet again by elders within the last week of the absolute clarity and absolute certainty they have that something massive is afoot, that is seminal, and it will take place in Australia. And I got more specifics about that, and I'm meeting someone within a week who's speaking directly about what the elders that really know this story are saying in preparation. And I've been given an exact date, which I'm not going to give you because I don't believe in them, but insistent. So the point of this is that particular workshop we're doing is an evolving story because more's added to it, and we're going to change it. But it's about the fact that there will be a change and what comes next. And it's predicated around that narrative. And that was a narrative we did at Byron Bay the first time, and it was sold out, and many people missed out. And we believe it was a great story. And for those who came, we thank you for coming. And yes, there were a couple of things we can improve on, we will, and make it an even better story. So for that one, I think that's limited to 50 people, and that's at Melbourne. The one at Byron, I think, is at 70 for the first day, then the workshops are left. Look, it'd be great if you came to either, because both are stories that take place in Australia today, and they're about our history and our country.